Hey guys, it's Quinn, and today we will be discussing James Bond, or the lack thereof in recent years. One of the reasons the posts on this channel have declined in recent years is because, well, we haven't had a Bond film since COVID, so there's really very little to discuss at this point in time. It has not always been this way. At the start of the sort of canon franchise in 1962, audiences grew to expect Bond films to come out every year. Indeed, the first four Bond films came out in 4 consecutive years from 1962 to 1965. Of course, since that time, the pace slowed down slightly, but every 2 to 3 years was the cadence. At the end of the Cold War, the franchise had a hiatus, stopping from what at the time felt like an eternal 6 years from 1989 to 1995. Since then, though, the film sort of, came back at a slightly slower cadence every 3 to 4 years, which again is reasonable given that there was no source material left, as pretty much all the books had been turned into films at that point. Which brings us to today. Based on this historical precedent, having your last film come out in 2021 doesn't actually seem that crazy. However, the Wall Street Journal recently came out with an article explaining the state of Bond and why this 4-year break does not seem to be ending anytime soon, which is going to be the topic of the video for today. As you may recall, Amazon bought the distribution rights to James Bond, though the actual production and creative decisions, as in the making of the film, are still held by the Broccoli family, specifically Barbara Broccoli. Amazon wants to treat the Bond franchise like Star Wars and suck it absolutely dry. Make BS spin-offs, like a Moneypenny spin-off is one thing specifically the Wall Street Journal noted. And, have side movies with different 007s, create TV shows, and completely suck the soul dry like we saw Disney do with the formerly Titanic Star Wars franchise. Broccoli, on the other hand, who's the one actually making the content and therefore gets the final say on what the content will be, sees this as stupid. And that's where the conflict is happening right now. So that's the backstory. Amazon wants to go full steam ahead and make as much as possible. And Barbara Broccoli will only make singular James Bond specific 007 films like we've always had. That's it. If it's done with love. So that's sort of the central tension of why films haven't been getting made in recent years. It's this sort of Amazon make content versus Barbara Broccoli make singular Bond films. So what are my thoughts on this? I think Star Wars is sort of a good metaphor to use. So I'm just going to base my opinions kind of off what happened with Star Wars in recent years. I'll say this. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan per se, but I appreciate and respect what the original franchise was, what they're trying to do, and I get why people like it. They are well-made movies, they create an amazing universe, and people really care about the story and the characters. It's not my cup of tea, but the original trilogy has a soul to it. If you like it or not, I think that's pretty inarguable. Once Disney bought the franchise, with the exception maybe of Rogue One, I've never seen the prequel, so I won't say anything about it, but of the new content, right, that's come out in the past few years, maybe besides Rogue One, the rest of the franchise has felt like plastic crap. Such that, there's still lightsabers, the characters are the same characters, but they don't feel like you're falling into a universe anymore. There's no magic that makes you feel something. It just feels like movies. Now, the issue with this, though, through all of this, is Disney has made an absurd amount of money from Star Wars. A little bit different, right? They have, Disney World, Disneyland, so a little bit different, but the franchise, the movies themselves, obviously have also made a lot of money. And so because of this, they will continue their ways. I think Amazon will do the exact same thing with James Bond if they get it. So I'm happy to see that Barbara Broccoli is standing as sort of a bulwark against what I think would be, frankly, the destruction of the franchise. Let's take the Moneypenny example. Moneypenny, by herself, for instance, is not an interesting character. She is interesting because of her unique relationship with Bond that is sort of uncertain and goes beyond clearly just being co-workers. There's more to that relationship. To make a spin-off show makes zero sense. Similarly, to create a universe of other double O's is dull. You don't watch the films because of the double O's. Now, obviously, 006 and GoldenEye is a great character, but he's a great character because of his relationship with 007. Kind of the same thing with Moneypenny. You don't watch the movies because they're double O's. You watch it for 007, James Bond specifically. Hell, the point of License to Kill, one of the better Bond films, I would say generally speaking, that's the consensus among Bond fans, one of the better Bond films, is in that film, he leaves the organization. He's not really even a 00. So the fact that, you'd create these new films just for 00s, just to pump out more money and say it's in the same universe, kind of misses the point entirely of what makes the franchise good. I think the article does a really good job of highlighting sort of what the issue is between Amazon and Barbara Broccoli. And I think one of the things I want to call out is Amazon referred to James Bond as content. That's what they are describing James Bond as, and that's what they've told Barbara Broccoli they think of it as. And I don't think I have ever referred to personally those films in that manner. And the reason that's important is think of it this way. You would never hear a Star Wars fan or a Harry Potter fan refer to the franchise as content. You would never hear a sports fan refer to their favorite team or league, whatever it may be, as content. For many of us, you form an emotional bond to the James Bond universe. You don't want to make it plastic. And for those who aren't major fans, you literally only watch Bond films for the Bond formula. They would never watch a Moneypenny spinoff. So to treat it as content rather than what it actually is, which is a universe, which is a character, misses the point entirely. And I think Barbara Broccoli has rightfully identified this and is protecting a franchise that not only means everything to her, but to us as well. Now, what this means is that we will probably not get a Bond film again for a few years. And you know what? That's fine. I would rather us wait and get something made with love, with actual creativity, then see our franchise devolve into just another cash grab. Modern Hollywood has produced so many bad films recently because money has now overtaken individual creativity. I want Barbara to treat Bond for the old Hollywood that it is. One more item which stuck out to me from the Wall Street Journal article, they want to produce Bond content based on data. That's Amazon, that is. Whereas Barbara wants to make a Bond film based on her gut. Could you imagine if the James Bond universe just turned into an AI algorithm of quote-unquote content? Sounds like a franchise none of us would enjoy. So, in sort of summation, hold the line, Barbara, no matter how long it takes, because you would rather have a good film made every 4 or 5 years, made with actually the purpose and the ethos of the character, rather than just have this thing devolve, which I think is what will happen. I think Barbara's correctly identified, which is why, although the franchise has ground to an absolute halt, we don't even have a Bond named yet, I think that's the right decision. What are your thoughts on the current situation? Do you think we will find out even who the next Bond is this year? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and as always, like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.